Hello everyone. Today we'll be discussing about the removable and fixed orthodontic appliances. So in this today we'll start with the basic removable appliances. These are the contents which we are going to cover today. So a little history about the removable appliances. So Victor Hugo Jackson was the first person who was the chief proponent of the removable appliances in the US. Then Charles Hawley came, who introduced Hawley's appliance in 1908. Then there came Martin Schwartz in the mid 20th century. He developed a variety of split plate appliances. Then Philip Adams came, who modified the arrowhead clasp into Adams grip. Then George Crozet came, who gave a removable appliance that was entirely made of precious metal and like the heavy gold wires. Then at the beginning of the 20th century, some other removable appliances came into place like vulcanite, base plate, or molars and premolars were also capped for the retention. Then there occurred the development of removable appliances in Europe after the US, and Angus was the first person who started doing this. So some other removable appliances came into practice like pre-welded or pre-formed orthodontic bands or directly bonded attachments. Then, what is the scope of the removable appliances? So, the use of removable appliances still varies widely between clinicians, but it is possible to achieve adequate occlusal improvement with these appliances, provided the suitable cases. And it is vital to emphasize that cases suitable for removable appliance treatment are those that require simple tipping movements only, and surprisingly, few malocclusions also fall into this category. So first we need to understand the properties of orthodontic wires from which the removable appliances are fabricated. Some of these properties are aesthetics, stiffness, strength, range, spring back, permeability, resiliency, friction, biohostability, and biocompatibility, weldability of the wires. So first is the aesthetics. It is a desirable property, but we cannot compromise the mechanical properties. So some other alternatives came into use like composite wires. Then is the stiffness, which is also known as the load deflection rate, and it is the magnitude of the force delivered by the appliance for a particular amount of the deflection. So we can see that the force is directly related to the modulus of elasticity, the deflection, and also the radius, but it is inversely related to the length. And by doubling the radius of the wire, the force will be increased by 16 times. And by doubling the length of the wire, it will be reduced, force will be reduced by 8 times. Here also, we can see that the length is directly related to the deflection, but the radius is inversely related to the deflection. So low stiffness or low deflection rate implies that low forces will be applied, forces more constant as appliance deactivates, greater ease and accuracy in applying a given force. For active components, we need a low deflection rate, but for retentive components, we need high load deflection rate. Then strength. Strength is the force required to activate an arch wire to a specific distance. Then the range, distance to which an arch wire bends elastically before permanent deformation occurs. Then spring back, the extent to which the wire reverses its shape after permanent deformation. Wire can be activated to a large extent, hence fewer activations will be needed. Then formability is the ability to bend wire in desired configuration. Then resiliency is the amount of energy stored in a body. Then friction. So while closing spaces in continuous arch wire technique, it involves the relative motion of the bracket over the wire. So what will happen if the friction will be in excess? There will be loss of anchorage. So a least amount of friction is desired. Then biohostability, it is the ability of a wire to accumulate or be a site of accumulation of bacteria, spores, or viruses. Then biocompatibility, which is the resistance to corrosion and tissue tolerance to elements in the wire. Then there is weldability, ease by which a wire can be joined to other metals by actually melting the two metals in the area of the bond. These are some of the measurements of the wire which we use in the fabrication of the removable appliances. Then what are the mechanical orthodontic appliances? These are the instruments which apply pressure or offer resistance to the teeth for the purpose of stimulating alveolar bone change, bringing about changes in the position of teeth. uh, classification. So there are two types of it can be classified under two categories. So the first one is active plate. These are the appliances that affect actual tooth movement through adjustment of springs or attachments within the appliance. And then there are functional appliances. These stimulate the reflex muscle activity and which in turn produces the desired tooth movement. So in the active plate, it is there that there is the actual tooth movement by adjusting some of the attachments which is there in the removable appliance. But in the functional appliances, first there will be the stimulation of the muscle activity and then the desired tooth movement will be produced. Then according to the site of appliance placement, it can be extraoral, intraoral, or combination. Then according to the plane of movement, it can be transverse, sagittal, or vertical. Then method of curing, it can be heat cured also, self cured also, light cured also. Then indications for the removable appliances are that minor tooth movement technique are considered, malposition which is limited to relatively few teeth, then desired movement not more than few millimeters, then adequate space between adjacent teeth to permit entry of teeth to be moved, then allow axial inclination corrected by tipping forces, correctable etiologic forces, then favorable periodontal and periapical prognosis. There should be absence of contraindications, and excessive flaring of maxillary anterior teeth, diastema closure, crossbite correction, anterior crowding. For pre-prosthetic uses also like closing of spaces, uprighting of teeth, then for preventive periodontic procedures also, and like migration of mandibular incisors, for correction of speech defects also, for facilitation of oral surgical procedures, for retention after corrected malocclusion. Can be procedural also, like to be in space, and also in preventive and interceptive orthodontics. Some of the advantages and disadvantages of the removal appliances, like the tip advantages like tipping movement is achieved and it can be removed for cleaning of teeth and appliance, and or if the patient is in pain, or also on socially sensitive occasions, it is less conspicuous obviously, then can be undertaken by general practitioner also with adequate training. Then it is manufactured in the lab, so it takes less chairside time and more patients can be treated with it, and also it is less expensive. Then some of the disadvantages include that only simple malocclusions can be corrected. Multiple rotations cannot be corrected. Uncooperative patients may leave out the appliance also, which can prolong the treatment. Then multiple tooth movement cannot be carried out at the same time. So it also prolongs the treatment duration. Then lower appliance is not well tolerated. And cases other than the first premolar extraction cannot be treated easily. Some of the components of the removable appliances include the retentive components, base plate, and the active components. So we'll start with the retentive components. So what are the retentive components? Basically, it means the components which resist the displacement of the appliance. Then some of the components which are, we'll start with the clasp. So clasp is any hook or band attached to a natural tooth and used to anchor a partial denture or an orthodontic appliance. We're starting with the circumferential clasp, which is fabricated by the wire 0.9 mm, and it is also known as C clasp or three-quarter clasp. And it is a simple clasp which is used to engage the buccocervical undercut, and it is used for the retention purpose, and it cannot be used in partially erupted teeth. Then we have Jackson's clasp, which is also fabricated using the 0.9 mm wire, and it is also known as full clasp or U clasp. It engages both the buccocervical undercuts. It has a simple design and it offers adequate retention, and but it gives inadequate retention in partially erupted teeth. Then we have the triangular clasp, which is fabricated using the 0.6 mm wire, and it is used between adjacent posterior teeth, indicated for additional retention. Then we have Adams clasp, which is also known as Liverpool clasp, universal clasp, modified arrowhead clasp. It has three parts like bridge. You can see that this is the portion, this is the bridge, which is the bridge. Then we have the arrowheads and we have the retentive arms. This is the retentive arm. The one that is marked as B, it is a retentive arm. And then this transverse framework is the bridge, and these are the two arrowheads, this one and this on the other side. Some of the advantages of Adams class bar: it is small, so it can be neat, unobtrusive, occupies minimum space, rigid, offers excellent retention, used on any tooth in the arch. If broken, can be repaired by soldering. It permits modifications in design. Extensive wire bending incorporates stresses in the wire. Then some of the modifications of the Adams class, that Adams class can be used with single arrowhead also in the cases where we offer the partially erupted teeth. Then it can incorporate a J hook for the engagement of the elastics. Adams class with helix also is there for additional retention, and also we can add an arrowhead also to the Adams class for additional retention. Then Adams class with soldered buccal tube is also there. Then Adams class with distal extension. Then double clasp on maxillary central incisors. Then we have Schwarz class, which was designed by C.M. Schwarz, and it is oldest, and for considerable amount of time it was used. Then arrowhead is bent towards papilla to engage the undercuts. As you can see in the picture, that the arrowhead is bent towards the papilla to engage the undercut. It can be used in deciduous or permanent dentition. There is a skill required to fabricate this clasp, and it can be used only on the posterior teeth. Then we have Dyson clasps. It has a simple design. It engages both buccal undercut of molars. Half clasp can also be constructed. And then we have eyelet clasp, which is similar to triangular clasp, and it is used as single eyelet or multiple eyelet clasp. Eyelets are placed in embrasures. Then bending the eyelet interdentally towards the teeth. It is activated by bending the eyelet interdentally towards the teeth. Then no sharp bends needs to be given. Then there is it does not interfere with the eruption of teeth. Then on single tooth, it does not have a firm grip. Then we have delta clasp. It was designed by William Clark, and it is similar to Adams clasp in principle, and it engages the interdental undercuts also. Then it holds a retentive loop and twist inwards, then bending towards interdental undercut as it emerges from the acrylic. Then southern clasp, which is fabricated from 0.7 mm wire, and it covers the two adjacent margins of anterior teeth. It is aesthetically more pleasing. Then we have ball end clasp, in which their wire has a knob or ball-like structure on one end, and it utilizes the interdental undercuts indicated when additional retention is required. Then the another component of the removable appliance is the base plate. So we'll start with the base plate now. The greatest portion of removable appliance, this is the portion which covers a major area or major portion of the removable appliance. It is 1 to 2 mm thick, and it has three main purposes. Like, it acts as a vehicle to carry all the parts of the appliance. It serves as anchorage, or it helps in anchorage also, and it becomes an active part of appliance itself. So how does it help in anchorage? So first of all, what is anchorage? Anchorage resists the force of reaction generated by active components. So the sides of anchorage must be equal in magnitude, but opposite in direction to those generated by active components. Then there is simple anchorage, in which teeth which offer greatest resistance to movement used as anchorage for movement of lesser resistance teeth. Then the base plate is usually made of acrylic, and it is made as thin as possible, like 1 to 2 mm, and it should be closely adapted to the soft tissues. Then it extend as far as necessary to obtain the anchorage. It should be extended that much. Then the lower base plate should be U-shaped, and it is relatively thicker. Then shallow lingual sulcus is reinforced with stainless steel wire or bar. It can be heat cured, self cured, or light cured. Then this is the classification of the base plate. It can be anterior or posterior. Then according to the jaws for upper or for lower. Then whether it is parallel to the occlusal plane or inclined to the occlusal plane. Then anterior, some of the appliances in which the base plate, in which there is the use of base plate is that anterior bite plane. This is the platform behind the upper incisor teeth, and the height is enough to separate the posterior teeth by 1.2 to 1.5 to 2 mm. So this is the base plate, acrylic base plate, and it is placed between the upper and lower front incisor teeth, and it reduces the overbite of anterior teeth by opening the bite, and also the height of the plane is gradually increased. And if there is a proclination for the proclination of upper incisors, if there is proclination of the upper incisors, then we can place a labial bow also, or Swade bite plane. Then what is Swade bite plane? It was introduced by Swade in 1944, and it covers the incisal edges of the upper incisors. You can see here, and then the pressure will be transmitted axially in this direction, in the axial direction. And it is ideal in the growing individuals for resisting the proclination of the incisors. Then we have posterior bite plane, which is used for the correction of the cross bites. In this, the acrylic portion of the base plate covers the posterior teeth also, and it should be wide enough to contact both the buccal and the palatal cusps, and occlusion is disengaged in this appliance, and it should be for the crossbite on both sides. It should be equal on both the sides. After correction of the appliance, it also acts as the retainer. Sorry, after correction of the malocclusion, it acts as the retainer also. Then we have lower inclined planes, which we use in the cases of anterior crossbite, and it is made at the 45 degrees to the occlusal plane. Then upper incisors are guided into the correct position labially, and it is indicated when incisors are in early stage of eruption. Then if used for more than 6 weeks, anterior open bite results, and it requires the frequent cementation. Like this is the case in which the lower inclined plane was used, and you can see that there is the anterior crossbite in this case, and after the use of the lower bite plane, the anteriors have are proclined now, and the anterior crossbite is corrected. Then we'll be studying about the active components of the removable appliances, which includes labial bow springs, elastics, or screws. In labial bows, it has two functions. That is, it serves as an active element for movement of teeth, or it holds the plate in place and retain the teeth. Then we have labial bows with U-loop. It is fabricated by using 0.7 mm wire, and its flexibility depends upon the vertical height of the U-loops, and only minor overjet reduction is done, can be carried out with the labial bow. And labial bow is activated by compression of the U-loop. Then we have long labial bow. So the short labial, this was short labial bow, which is fabricated from the canine to the canine. But the long labial bow, it is fabricated from first premolar to the first premolar, and it is used to close the spaces between the canine and the premolar, and it is used for retention also. Then we have split labial bow. So split labial bow, in this, there is a split in between the labial bow in the area of the central incisors, and Then it is used for the incisor retraction, and again the activation is made by compressing the U loops. Then there is labial bow with the reverse loop, which prevents the buccal drifting of the canine. And the activation is done in two stages. That is, vertical loop is opened by compressing with plier, then it lowers the bow and incisor region, compensating bends at the base of the loop. Then Mills bow or extended labial bow, it is made up of 0.7 mm wire, and extensive loops are given in this for greater flexibility, and the indications are that it reduces the large overbites or alignment of irregular incisors. Then it is more flexible, so lighter forces are applied, and it has a longer range of action. And in mixed dentition, it can be used where canines are not erupted. But due to the extensive loops, it can be less comfortable for the patient. Then high labial bow with the apron spring, and it is fabricated. It is fabricated by using 0.9 mm wire, but the spring used is of 0.3 to 0.4 mm. And its activation is done by bending it towards the teeth. And it is used in the cases where retraction of teeth is required with severe proclination. Like in this case, you can see that the central incisor is proclined. So for the retraction of this tooth or such tooth this can be used. It produces lighter forces, and it has a longer range of action. But it is not well tolerated by the patient, and it is time consuming to fabricate, and it cannot be used in patients with shallow sulcus. So we can see that in this case, there is proclination of the central incisor, and by bending it towards the tooth, by bending the spring towards the tooth, the proclination can be corrected. Then we have Roberts retractor, which is flexible bow constructed by 0.5 mm wire, and steel tubing is there to give the support, and coil is placed at the point of emergence from the tubing. This is the coil that is placed in the in Roberts retractor, and it is activated by there a vertical limb is constructed below the coil. Then we have fitted labial bow, which is constructed from 0.7 mm wire. It is adapted closely to the labial surface of anterior teeth, and it is used for retention, but it is time consuming during the fabrication. Then we have Beggs retention bow, which is made from 0.7 mm wire, which extends till the last erupted molar, and U loops are made between the first and second premolars. It allows the settling of occlusion, and if not constructed well, the retention may not be good. Then we have springs. And another active component is the springs, and it is the most commonly used active elements. So the requirements are that springs should deliver optimum force, it should possess high degree of elasticity, it should have long range of action. Force systems delivered depend upon the intrinsic properties, which cannot be altered by operator. Some of the intrinsic properties are modulus of elasticity, yield strength, and some of the extrinsic properties are the length of wire or the thickness of wire. These are the properties which operator can control. Then small changes in diameter and length have a profound impact on the force delivered. Effect of wire diameter on force delivered. Then effect of wire length. The coil increases the length of the spring, so lower force with same amount of activation can be done. Then we have classification of springs based on the direction of tooth movement. Springs for mesiodistal tooth movement, spring for labiolingual tooth movement, spring for expansion of arches. Then based on the nature of support, self-supported springs, guided springs, auxiliary springs. Then based on the presence of loop or helix. Single cantilever spring, it has the parts like active arm, coil, or retentive arm. So this is the active arm. In this picture, we cannot see it, but the portion which is encircling the tooth from the buccal side, this is the active arm. Then these are the coils, and this is the retentive arm. It is made of 0.5 to 0.6 mm wire, and coil with incidental diameter of 2 to 3 mm is there. So the coil that has to be fabricated should not be more than 2 to 3 mm, and it is used to move the teeth, sorry, labiolingually or mesiodistally. Then we have double cantilever spring, that is Z spring. So it is constructed using 0.5 to 0.6 mm wire. Spring is perpendicular to the palatal surface of the spring should be perpendicular to the palatal surface of the tooth, and it is indicated where the incisors are to be proclined. And activation is done by opening both the coils. If not perpendicular to the palatal surface of teeth, it tends to intrude the teeth. Then we have T-spring, which is constructed using 0.5 mm wire, and it causes the buccal movement of premolars and molars. And the activation is done by pulling the spring away from the base plate. Then coffin spring, it is developed. It was developed by Walter Coffin in 1881, and it is made in two segments. So it was large enough to make contact with all the teeth to be moved, and it was made by 1.25 mm of wire. And spring stands 1 mm away from the soft tissues. So this is the coffin spring, and this is the spring, and it should be 1 mm away from the palate. It is used for this spring is used for the expansion of the arch. Indications like transverse arch expansion, and in the cases like unilateral crossbite with lateral mandibular displacement. Advantages are of this screw are that the differential expansion can be obtained, whether we want anterior expansion or whether we want the posterior expansion, we can achieve with the help of this spring. Then the activation is done by Activation is done with the help of plier by opening the loops in the by opening the uh, spring, by opening the coffin spring, or by pressing it at the base of the coffin spring in this position, like here. So it will lead to the anterior expansion, or we can also activate it by pulling these arms apart with the help of the plier. Then we have canine retractors. So canine retractors are used to move the canine in distal direction, and based on the location, it can be buccal or palatal, based on the presence of helix or loop, and based on the mode of action, that it can be push type or pull type. Then buccal self-supported canine retractor is there. This is the buccal self-supported canine retractor, which is made of 0.7 mm wire, and it is placed buccally on the canine to in which the canine is to be moved palatally or distally. Then coil is just distal to the long is made just distal to the long axis of the tooth. Activation is done by 1 mm, and for retracting the canine distally by closing the loop, and for palatally the anterior limb is bent towards the tooth after it emerges from the coil. It can be uncomfortable to the patient. It has a greater stability, but the flexibility is compromised. Then we have supported buccal canine retractor also. So the difference is only difference is there is the wire is supported in tubing. So this is the supported buccal canine retractor, and in design it is identical to the self-supported one. Then reverse loop canine retractor, it can be used in the shallow sulcus also. It is known as the helical canine retractor also. And the activation is made by opening the coil. Then we have U-loop buccal canine retractor. It can be used in shallow sulcus. Activation is done by free end, like the free end is cut by 1 mm and then readapted. It requires frequent adjustments also. Then we have palatal canine retractor. This is used in the cases where canine is placed palatally and requiring distal and buccal movement both. The coil diameter should be 3 mm. Sorry, placed between the initial and final position of the canine. Then boxing or guarding of the retractor can be done to protect it from the damage. Spring lies in the recess and the spring lies in between the base plate and the mucosa. So it can also be activated by opening the coil by 1 to 2 mm, and it should not be bent where it merges from the base plate. Then another type of the active components is the screws, which is used for moving the individual tooth or group of tooth. So the type of screws can be two types of expansion screws can be used, that is skeletal expansion screw or dental expansion screw. Type of screws which can cause maxillary expansion as well as mandibular expansion also, or both bilateral expansion, sectional expansion, which leads to radial expansion also. So these are the according to the kind of expansion what we need. These are the screws that can be used. Or if we if we need expansion in all the three directions. So the activation is done by turning the screw by 90 degrees. It will drive the, first of all, I'll want to tell that the screw is placed in the acrylic base plate only. It is incorporated into the base plate and then after for the expansion purposes and placed in the area of the mid palatine suture, and so the expansion takes place after that, after activating the screws. So the activation is done by turning it by 90 degrees and it will drive the parts of the plate apart by 0.2 mm. So uses like base plate is divided into sections. It is split along the midline. Like you can see in this picture that the base plate is split in the midline and the screw is placed, or it is incorporated into the base plate. Then and can be used in the cases like bilateral crossbite and minor crowding of incisors. The split can be larger, or or the split can be made in the smaller part also, depending upon the use. So we can see that in the base plate, here this is the case of the anterior crossbite. So in this case, what we have done is that we have splitted the base plate, the smaller portion, only for a smaller portion in the anterior region, and we have placed the expansion screw, and after activating it, the activation is taking in the anteroposterior expansion takes place in the anteroposterior direction, causing the teeth, or causing expansion in the anteroposterior direction and leading to the correction of the crossbite. So post treatment we can see that the crossbite is being corrected after the expansion. So lingually locked and crowded upper central incisors, which are tipped forward, can be corrected by using the springs after space is provided by the moderate expansion. Like in this cases, in this only one tooth is lingually locked, so so the plate is split in that way, only in one direction. But when there is anterior crossbite and it includes both the central incisors, then the split can be made in between, and causing the expansion in the anterior posterior direction, leading to the correction of the crossbite. Then expansion and reduction of it is also used for the expansion and reduction of overjet also. Then there can be wire plates also, which is used for alignment of crowded canines with sagittal and lateral expansion. In this, the split is made in such a way that both the sagittal and lateral expansion can be made. Like this is the screw that is placed in this acrylic portion by for causing the lateral expansion, but here also we can place another expansion screw in the cases where we want both. So this leads to the sagittal expansion. Then we have elastics, which are the another component of the active components of the removal appliance. Elastic, it resembles the rubber band. It is made of latex rubber and it is available in various diameters. And force applied it depends upon the diameter of the elastics. Then color coded, these are color coded for easy identification, and the users are like for the movement of cinch teeth or groups of teeth, or for intermaxillary traction also. So elastics can be used for the for the correction of the sagittal discrepancy. Like in class 2 cases, the elastics can be used in class 3 cases also, running across from the molars and the canines, which can lead to the correction of the class 2 or class 3 relationship. Then soldering is another such another one property which can be which can through which there can which is used in the fabrication of the removal appliances. So it is a joining of two metals by the use of filler metal, which has substantially low fusion and temperature should be the temperature should be lower than that of the metal parts being joined. Some of the dental solders are composed of gold, silver, copper, zinc, tin, or nickel. And some of the requisites of a solder are it should have a good tarnish or corrosion resistance. The fusion temperature should be lower than that of the parts being joined, and it should be free flowing and adequately wet. The metal parts for good adhesion and strength of solder comparable to metals being joined. So this is the soldering technique. It is shown that these are two of the components of the wire, and for joining this, the solder is used. So we'll place the solder, and with the help of the soldering torch, we'll after that. For soldering, what we'll do is we'll apply the flux. Flux is a material which allows the easy flow of the metals. So the flux will be first applied to the parts to be joined. Then, with the use of the soldering torch, the area will be heated and the solder material will flow. The solder, the metal which we are using for the soldering, it will flow and it will lead to the joining of these two metal parts. Then another process which is used, which we commonly use while the fabrication of the removable appliances is the welding, and it is a process by which surface of metal are joined by mixing with or without the use of the heat. So there is cold welding, hot welding. There are three methods of welding like spot welding, pressure welding, or laser welding. So spot welding is a convenient method of uniting pieces of metal of the same kind. It is clean, quick, and it produces the joints that are strong and reliable. So the basic principles behind the spot welding is the heat and the pressure in which the electric current is conducted through two copper electrodes, and resistance is offered generates very high temperature, and then the copper electrodes simultaneously apply pressure on the metals. Metal melts at the contact points, and pressure squeezes metal into each other. This is the spot welder, which is with the help of which we do the spot welding. Then welding, metal parts are placed together, and it is sufficiently large. Force is applied, which is perpendicular to the surface, and then the welding occurs. Then force applied should be sufficiently larger. Then laser welding, it is a high density. In this, the high intensity pulse of light is focused, and the duration and intensity of pulse metal melts into the small region without microstructural damage to surrounding areas. Then some of the removable appliances, like according to the so these are classified for the purpose of retention, or for the purpose of preventive and or interceptive ortho, or for active tooth movement, for transverse movement, for sagittal, or for vertical movement. Then we have this Hawley's appliance, which was designed by the Charles Hawley in 1908, and it is most frequently used as the retainer. It comprises of a short labial bow and Adams on the molar clasp. Then some of the modifications are like in place of short labial bow, we can use long labial bow, and then labial bow is soldered to bridge of Adams clasp, which avoids the risk of space opening due to crossover wire. Then fitted labial bow can be used. Anterior bite plane can be used to correct the deep bite, and expansion screw with split labial bow can also be used. With tongue crib, it is also it can be modified. It is modified as the incorporation of the tongue crib also in it, with Z spring on second molars or lingual movement of molars. Then uh, then there is another retainer in which we have C clasp on molars, and there is anterior labial bow, which it is known as the Alexander's retainer. Then there is high labial retainer in which has a control over each tooth separately, and springs are used for the correction of rotation and uprighting for both active and retentive uses. It is used. And then there is a removable cuspid to cuspid retainer. Then there is Begg's wraparound retainer. So it in this, the bows extends till last erupted molar, and no crossover wire is there. It eliminates the risk of space opening up. Then clip-on retainer is there, in which the wire runs labial to incisors, passes between the canine and premolars. Both labial and lingual wire segments are embedded into the into an acrylic, and it brings about the correction of rotation in lower anterior segment. Then we have Kesseling tooth positioner, and in this this positioner is made of thermoplastic rubber-like material, and in which there is no activation is needed. There is no, but there can be difficulty in the speech, and there can be a risk of TMJ problems also. Then we have wraparound cantilever retainer, which is ideal for well-finished cases. Then we have cantilever arm, in which we have a cantilever arm, which is placed at the middle of first cuspid, soldered to the labial bow. Bow is adjusted by giving a slight bend in the cantilever arm. Some of the removable appliances can be used for the habit, for breaking a habit also, like the tongue crib appliance, which is used for breaking habit of thumb sucking or tongue thrusting. Then we have oral screen or vestibular screen also, which was introduced by Newell in 1912. In this, a shield of acrylic is placed in the labial vestibule and it is designed to screen the oral cavity. And also a metal ring is placed between the upper and the lower lip into the acrylic. And it is used to intercept habits like thumb sucking, tongue thrusting, and mouth breathing. Some of the modifications are included for the interception of tongue thrusting also, for additional screen placed in the lingual aspect attached to the vestibular screen by means of a thick wire, and for mouth breathing when airways are open it is fabricated with a number of holes that are gradually closed. Then in the cases like open bite, interstitious, and mixed dentation. For mild distal occlusion with premaxillary protrusion also. Then we have space maintainers also as the removal appliances, and space maintenance is a process of maintaining the space which is previously occupied by a space or several teeth before the eruption of the permanent teeth. It is classified as a functional and non-functional. For functional one, the teeth incorporated to aid in mastication, speech, and aesthetics, and for the non-functional ones are when acrylic extension or edentulous area to prevent space closure. So, class 1, class 2, class 3, and class 4, like in class 1, it is unilateral when there is an involvement of unilateral maxillary posterior, class 2, unilateral mandibular posterior, class 3, bilateral maxillary posterior, and in class 4, bilateral mandibular posterior. So this is so some of the types of the space maintainers like C space regainer. And another one is lip bumper or lip shield, which extends into the vestibular sulcus to the labial fold. Then no contact is made between the shield and the incisors. It eliminates the persistent hyperactivity of the mentalis muscle. Used in the cases like class 2 Devon malocclusion, class 1 flush terminal plane with large overjet, shield the lower lip away, and used for the interception of the lip sucking habit and to augment the anchorage. For distalization of molars, then as space regainers for in the case of early loss of deciduous molars. Sorry. Then we have Denholtz appliance also, which is a lip bumper for the maxillary arch, and the design is similar to the mandibular lip bumper. Then we have Crozet appliance for the treatment of buccal crossbite. Now we'll start with the fixed orthodontic appliances. So these are some of the differences between the removable and the fixed one. So we just completed with the removable appliances, and we studied that the removable appliances causes tipping movement only, but in the fixed there is bodily or transitional movement also. Then I'm sorry. Then in removable, no control is there over the root movement, but in fixed there is control of root movement also. In removable, there can be seen that there is more patient cooperation, but in fixed it is less dependent on the patient's cooperation, while in removable we need the patient's cooperation. Then removable is more hygienic because we can remove it and then clean it, but fixed one is less hygienic as compared to the removable one. Then we have development of fixed appliances. So first there were early fixed appliances, then in the late 1800s. In early fixed appliances, there was standard edgewise appliance which came into action. Then in which during the 1970s, pre-adjusted edgewise appliance came into action, and so the manufacturing process with built-in adjustments specific were made, which was specific for each tooth, and advances in material sciences were made the attachments much smaller. Then Uh, the banded appliances were previously used, in which the bands were uh, totally banded onto the tooth for the tooth movement. Then the bonding to the enamel was done with the help of the adhesive or resin. Then at the bracket base, you can see that the bonding surface was not clear. It was there were lot many indentations or crease was at the bonding surface, so a proper bonding can occur. Sorry, please wait for a minute. Then we have lingual appliances also. Some of the ceramic appliances, then self-ligating appliances came into action. Passive fixed appliances are there. So we'll start with the components of the fixed appliance. Bands, molar tubes, brackets, buckle tubes, arch wires, auxiliaries like elastomeric products, coil springs or lingual arches, extraoral appliances, posterior attachments like molar tubes, interior attachments like brackets. Then we have arch wires for maxilla and mandible arch form described as parabolic shaped, and the size and cross section of the wires vary. Materials which are used for the fabrication of arch wires are nickel titanium alloy, titanium molybdenum alloy, or stainless steel. Then auxiliaries such as elastics. Some other auxiliaries includes the extraoral for extraoral forces headgear is used. Then coil springs for opening or closing of the spaces between the teeth. Then so the fixed appliance which first came into use was the pre-adjusted edgewise appliance or the straight wire appliance, and given by Larry Andrews. He studied the normal occlusion and individual tooth positions, then developed prescriptions for individual tooth position. Elements of ideal tooth position are built into the appliance itself, then minimizing the active wire manipulation. The it was based on that concept. So these are three types of movements that we can incorporate into the wire to achieve some desirable movements, like first order, second order, third order, in which the first order, it is given in horizontal plane, and it is the in out bend that is given into the wire. Then the second order is for the mesiodistal angulation, and the third order is the torquing movement for the labiolingual angulation. So there should be an accurate bracket or band positioning, because uh, then only it will lead to precise tooth positioning, or then proper occlusion, then aesthetics and stability of the tooth movement. Then for positioning of the brackets, so the brackets which are used as fixed appliances are, it is mostly rhomboidal in shape, and it has a distolingual wing mark, and then it has central scribe lines along the long axis. These are the positioning of the brackets, which is shown here. Like the maxillary central incisor bracket will be placed according to the pre-adjusted advice we are talking about. So according to that, the position of the central incisor from the edge slot of the incisor edge, and the slot of the bracket should be, it should be 4 mm the distance. Then for the lateral incisor, it is a little less, that is 3.5 mm. Then maxillary cuspids at 4.5 mm, maxillary bicuspids at 4 mm. Then mandibular incisors at the distance is 4 mm. The cuspids, mandibular cuspids at 4.5 to 5 mm. Then bicuspids at 4 mm. And maxillary first molar bands are at the level of 4 mm. Then the mandibular first molar bands are also at the level of 4 mm. So we are done with the removable and the fixed appliances which are used in orthodontics. So the conclusion, so there is this line which was given by Edward Engel that all you can do is push, pull, or turn a tooth, and I have given you an appliance, and now for God's sake, use it. So there are many removable and fixed appliances which are used in orthos, and it depends upon the patient's requirements, so whether to use, the patient's compliance, which one to use, and what kind of movement do we want, whether we want a minor tooth movement, and we want the correction of some less severe malocclusion, so we can go for the use of go with the use of removable appliances. But for the severe cases, the fixed appliances are used, and also depends upon the patient's cooperation also, and also on the age of the patient. So these are the references for the lecture. Thank you.